At the sacred grounds of Al-Aqsa Mosque, during the stillness of early morning, a woman stood immersed in prayer. At that very moment, Israeli soldiers, hardened by cruelty, unleashed ferocious dogs in her direction, intending to terrify her. Yet what unfolded afterward was something beyond human imagination, a moment that countless would later call nothing short of a divine miracle. Glory be to God. The soldiers who witnessed the event could not hide their astonishment. They had never believed that the strength of faith could alter the course of reality so profoundly. Even more extraordinary was the woman's own composure, a reaction that would capture the hearts of millions across the world. The story spread rapidly, accompanied by a call to all Muslims. If you share this faith, show your support, let your presence be known. The question lingered in the air. How many believers are watching, reading, and testifying to this? In the ancient city of Jerusalem, amidst its narrow streets and weathered stone walls, there remain countless tales etched into history, stories of endurance, struggle, and divine protection. Among them, one story stands apart, the story of a woman named Amina. Amina was no ordinary figure. She was known in her community as a woman of deep piety, a servant of God whose devotion was evident in every aspect of her life. Her heart overflowed with reverence for Al-Aqsa Mosque, a place that held a sacred position not only in the heart of Jerusalem but in the entire Muslim world. For many years, she had carried within her a dream, a desire that seemed so simple yet nearly impossible, to bow in prayer within the walls of Al-Aqsa itself. This dream, however, was constantly obstructed by the presence of occupying forces, who sought to deny the faithful their right to worship. Women, especially, bore the brunt of such restrictions, often turned away at the gates under fabricated justifications and endless pretexts. Yet, there came a day unlike any other, a day when divine mercy seemed to descend from the unseen realm and envelop Amina's life. On that morning, before the world awakened to the call of Fajr prayer, Amina arose. She performed her ablution carefully, each drop of water symbolizing purification, and then she wrapped herself in determination as she prepared to leave her home. The sky still bore the remnants of night, heavy with darkness, and the air was sharp with the chill of early dawn. But Amina's heart was alight, burning with a warmth kindled only by faith. She made her way to the main entrance of Al-Aqsa, where, as always, soldiers stood on guard with cold, watchful eyes. That morning was no different. Women once again were denied entry, humiliated before the very gates of a mosque that belonged to God alone. Mustering courage, Amina spoke softly to one of the soldiers, her voice steady yet pleading, "Allow me just a few moments to pray. That is all I ask." But her request was met not with mercy but disdain. The soldier's eyes narrowed in scorn as he barked back, "No, go home." Harsh words designed to break her spirit. Yet Amina's resolve was not so easily shattered. She knew that Al-Aqsa was vast, filled with hidden corners, arches, and pathways. If one path was blocked, perhaps another would open. So she quietly slipped past the inattentive eyes of the guards, making her way toward a secluded eastern section of the compound. There, surrounded by silence, she stood ready to worship. The air seemed to shift around her, as though unseen angels themselves had gathered. She raised her hands in takbir, lifting her spirit to the heavens, and began her prayer. The world seemed to fade, and the bustling noise of occupation, the hardness of soldiers, and the weight of oppression all disappeared. At that moment, it was just her, her Lord, and the sacred ground beneath her. But peace never lingers long in the presence of tyranny. Suddenly, a young soldier stepped out from behind one of the stone pillars, his voice cutting through the stillness. "Didn't I tell you? Praying here is forbidden." His anger carried over the quiet air. He quickly grabbed his radio and barked into it, "There's a woman praying near the eastern section. Everyone, get here now." Within moments, the silence was broken by heavy boots. Several soldiers appeared, their faces twisted with mockery and menace. They circled Amina, ridiculing her devotion. One of them sneered, "We'll make an example out of you. Let's show her what happens when our orders are ignored." Another soldier, glancing at his commander, suggested darkly, "Release the Belgian dogs. Let her see what defiance costs." Their cruelty knew no limits. Soon, the dogs were brought forward, massive, muscular creatures trained to attack without hesitation. Their eyes burned with ferocity, their growls filled the air, and their bared teeth seemed ready to shred. The commander lifted his hand and gave the dreaded signal, "Attack." At that precise instant, Amina completed her prayer. Yet she did not run, nor did she scream. She remained rooted to the ground, her heart unshaken. With serenity, she closed her eyes and raised her hands toward the sky, whispering words filled with unyielding faith. "O Allah, you are my only refuge. You alone are my protector and deliverer. With your strength, I endure." In your name, I stand. Do not abandon me in this moment." Then came what can only be described as a miracle. The very dogs that had been snarling with murderous intent suddenly froze in their tracks. They neither advanced nor obeyed. Instead, they sat upon the ground in stillness. What followed was beyond comprehension. The dogs lifted their gaze heavenward, as though they were hearing a call inaudible to human ears. Then, an astonishing transformation occurred. One of the dogs bent down, its body bowing into ruku. A moment later, it lowered itself into sujud, a posture of prostration. Another dog followed, mimicking the same act. Soon, these ferocious beasts were kneeling in prayer like submission beside Amina. The soldiers stood paralyzed, their bravado stripped away by sheer disbelief. The sight of these trained killers abandoning violence to prostrate was more than their minds could grasp. One soldier stammered in a whisper, "Is this sorcery?" Another trembled visibly, overcome by fear and awe. The commander, trying desperately to reassert control, shouted once more, commanding the dogs to attack. But the animals no longer obeyed. Instead, when the soldiers drew nearer to Amina, the dogs turned against their handlers. Their growls deepened, this time directed at the very men who had once commanded them. With sudden ferocity, the dogs lunged, chasing the soldiers away. What unfolded next was chaotic and terrifying for the occupiers. The very beasts trained for brutality were now the instruments of their humiliation. The dogs pursued the soldiers, scattering them in panic. The streets of Jerusalem echoed with their cries and the thunder of boots as soldiers fled in every direction. Some stumbled and fell. Others scrambled onto vehicles in desperate attempts to escape the onslaught. And through it all, Amina remained composed. She rose calmly from her position of sujud, unshaken, as though nothing unusual had happened. Her worship continued seamlessly, uninterrupted by the commotion around her.